Great. So you were at 180 at peak. How many employees are you at today?
36.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Proof of Work podcast brought to you by NoRamp. Today, I'm here with another amazing guest, Adam Renklint. Adam, how you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well. Yeah, thanks for taking the time. Really excited to chat with you. You've had an awesome experience at Pitch. And yeah, I'd love for if you could introduce yourself for the audience.
Sure. So I'm a Swede living in Germany since 10 years. I moved here to join a small startup called Six Wunderkinder. They made a little to-do list app called Wunderlist. That was kind of a hype child of a former startup wave. And I joined as one of the first international employees. Made a lot of friends there. We worked together on this for 5 years, I think, and then it was acquired by Microsoft. So we spent 2 years there seeing how the sausage is made in a corporate factory and realized it wasn't necessarily something for us. So a few of my friends from Wunderlist, a few of the people who had founded Six Wunderkinder, we decided to start a new company together, which was then what became Pitch. And this was around 2017. So we founded or we started talking about it at the end of 2017. Other than that, I mean, I've been programming since I was a kid. Actually, my first job ever was programming when I was 13 or 14, building websites back in the day when it was a lot harder or there was a lot less choice in technology as well. So I've been playing with computers for a very long time, had a little detour doing other things, gathering experiences, and then came back to programming. And now in Pitch, I'm not doing as much of the programming, more leadership, product direction, trying to make sure that we're all on the same track, all feeling inspired, empowered to do awesome things. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of my story.
Amazing. Now, and going into your experience at Wunderlist, which it must have had a profound experience on you, being able to experience that type of growth and obviously ultimately being acquired. Tell me about that experience and what you learned from it.
Yeah, I mean there was a crazy time. It was growing so fast, and it was we built it, or they started it, the initial team, just as a side product in order to prove to investors that they could build something to raise money for the bigger product, which we also tried to build. It was called Wunderkit. It became over-engineered and it was not, kind of just shut that down and focused on Wunderlist. And it was pretty amazing to see how our customers, our users became these really hardcore fans. And we did a few times kind of surveys or blog posts about what people are using Wunderlist for, it was a pretty simple to-do list app made for people working together, so you could share lists. But people were using it for all kinds of things. I remember there was one team from an NGO in Jamaica who were using it to keep their inventory for a kind of a makeshift hospital. There was one person I think in the US who was disabled and had to take lots of medication. So this was their lifeline to just keep track of everything. So it was really, I had built stuff before, but being in that environment where so many people were using it, it was really easy to be inspired. And it was also famous. Me and a friend moved in together, a designer from Wunderlist, and we actually got our apartment from a guy who was a super. It turned out when we went to the viewing that he was a hardcore fan, so he threw in a dishwasher for free to give us a few feature requests to consider. So yeah, it was pretty. I mean, it's a startup journey, many ups, many downs. I would say that it was not in the beginning an attempt to build a business necessarily. It was, really focused on growth. So I think that was also a learning maybe something I realized more in hindsight, since I was more involved in the programming and the kind of product vision part or the product development part, that stapling on or trying to staple on a business model after the fact is really hard. It probably won't work. So you have to think about, how do you want to make money? How do you want to make something sustainable from the beginning?
You see that problem with so many consumer apps today. They build this amazingly beautiful product, tons of users, but they struggle to find the way to monetize. And when they do, those consumers that weren't used to paying for anything are like, why are these ads being split up in these very random spots? Or they add premium features, or features that you had access to are now payment gated. And yeah, that's tough. That is tough.
Yeah, I think especially that what you mentioned with like giving someone a feature for free, which is very, easy to get that idea. You want to try something out. You don't know if it will have legs, what it will turn out to be as you keep developing it. And then you realize there's a potential to monetize it. There's a willingness to pay. And then moving that over from your free tier to your paid tier, that is going to cause problems. Yeah, because people get used to stuff being for free, and no one wants no one wants the grocery bag to be filled with half the amount of groceries for the same amount of money, actually. So yeah, you have to be smart about that, I think.
And it's tough. And you talked about potential problems. When I hear about the fact that you started Pitch with 7 co-founders, that is that is insane to me. When I think of starting a company, even starting it with one other person, you hear one of the biggest things that causes startups to fail is, co-founder problems. You had 7, so had to had the potential to magnify issues sevenfold, which is pretty crazy. So, how did you navigate figuring out who was going to be in charge of what someone was going to do from the beginning? Like, how do you do that with 7 people?
Yeah, so the 8 of us, we were friends. We have worked together at Wunderlist and then later at Microsoft, and we had kind of seen each other in difficult situation, in the pressure cooker, seeing how we react, and that had kind of solidified a friendship that we could build a partnership on. And one experience that the co-founders of Wunderlist had was that, and they were 6 at that time, is that someone will drop off along the way. Like, people change their minds about what is important in life, or it doesn't work out for whatever reason. So adding a bit of buffer to make sure that you still have like a solid foundation of co-founders sticking together was a strategy for us to make sure that we don't dilute the co-foundership of the company, so to say, over time. And it's been pretty, I would say, a successful strategy for us. And the main person that kind of pulled us all together was Christian Reber, who was the co-founder or the founder and CEO of Wunderlist. And he was also the CEO of Pitch for the first 6 years. Really good friend, taught me a lot of things. Yeah, so that was the only thing that was kind of set from the beginning. He pulled us all together, took care of all the business stuff, all the paperwork. We incorporated in Germany, so whatever it is in the US, just think that times 10 with longer words. Yeah, so and the rest of us, we just wanted to build a great product. And we had this idea from the beginning what we wanted to do, but not really where it would go. So we leaned into the idea that we were going to figure that out along the way. And it took a few months before it was obvious that I had also kind of emerged as a second leader, because when it comes to building a product, hiring engineers, making sure that you're working in one direction, it becomes pretty useful if you can have someone to kind of channel everyone else's passion. So that's what I did. And became the CTO, which was my role up until recently. And for the rest of the founding team, they've actually had different roles over time. Some have been individual contributors most of the time. Others have been jumping between managing other people or leading high stakes projects and things like that. I think it has been important for us that we have that friendship to lean back on, where it's not just about business. Of course, that is important, but you can have tough conversations because at the end of the day you have something else to fall back on.
Yeah, no, that is really amazing because you hear about. It's so funny. You hear about in business there are some people that say never start a business with your family. There are other people that say always start a business with your family because of basically what you said there. Like you always have something to fall back on. So family, friends, similar type of thing there. But there's so many potential issues that can occur. But on the complete other side of the spectrum, there's so much upside to starting a company with people that are close friends.
People talk about finding a co-founder, right? It's like a marriage, right? And I think if you're just going to marry someone, it's probably good to have known them for quite a while, right? Because just a few weeks of dating, it's not going to tell you everything that you need to know. There are going to be surprises.
Right. And because you are all such close friends, you probably know where each other's strong suits are. You know where someone may have lacked, which another person could make up for. So yeah, it probably was more seamless and made sense who was going to take what role. Probably easier than someone would think from the outside.
Like we're ambitious people, but we're not necessarily ego driven. Like we really wanted to build this together. And I think if you start with that foundation instead of people coming from different directions, and then, I think that could be a source of conflict then when you start pulling or pushing in different directions. I don't want to paint a too rosy picture. It's of course been hard at times. We've argued, but there's a difference with arguing with someone that you've known for a few months and then your childhood friend, which you probably have those friendships, right? People you haven't seen for years and you meet them and then it's all so natural. I think that not every co-founding relationship starts like that. We're definitely a little bit odd in that way, and people often ask about this. But I think, and some people even advised against it as we were starting. But I wouldn't change it. It has been really good for us.
That's amazing. And another question that you probably get a lot, similar to the how did you start 7 co-founders, would be, there's so many options on the market, like PowerPoint, Canva, Prezi, Google Slides. I mean, there's a million that you could probably think of too. Why use Pitch? And I used Pitch, so I know the answer. But why would someone use Pitch over any of those similar existing options?
Yeah, I think that the answer of this has changed over time. So when we started Pitch, it was really a reaction for us having worked in Microsoft, having had to create heavy decks in PowerPoint in order to get anything done. Also in the context of very heavy bureaucracy. And we wanted to build something where it could feel like all team members trusted each other, where everything was real time. You didn't have the concept of files that got outdated, and you also you had access to all the history of everything that had been done. So you didn't have to think about permissions or who is allowed to do what. You're all just working. So that was a really big selling point in the beginning, of just taking people from the legacy tools that were kind of stuck in file systems and really cumbersome ways of working into the cloud. And there were a bunch of competitors that started alongside us, or slightly before, slightly after, and most of them disappeared over time. Some got bought, some just shut down. Um, and I think now the main selling point of pitch is slightly different because others have caught up and new competitors have started from a similar starting point like ours. So nowadays, I would say that the main reasons for picking pitch is that you really value a beautiful outcome. So pitch kind of softly nudges you towards great design, and it puts up these guardrails that prevents you from creating something that looks off-brand. Many of the teams that use pitch successfully today, they in some way represent themselves publicly to clients or similar, or to VCs, and they want to have their brand look great there. So they want to use the same colors, the same fonts, the same images, but they also want to be able to express themselves, right? So it's not something where you just fill in the gaps, fill in the holes, but you want to have the freedom to express yourself on a blank canvas. And a lot of the teams that are using pitch today, that are like some of our most happiest users, because they use presentations in some way of winning work, of convincing others, they also quite often in the past used other tools, adjacent tools, to help them. Maybe they export a PowerPoint, export a PDF from PowerPoint or Keynote, and then put it in another tool to send it out in order to track, did anyone even open it? So we've bundled that together to kind of capture the whole life cycle of a presentation, from inception to the creative moment, where you're collaborating maybe with a designer or with some other folks in the team. You have a finished product and you send it out, you share the link, you can get comments from the people that are receiving it. You can also see in an anonymous aggregated way, what do people do when they see my presentation? Do they drop off after the second slide? Well, maybe the copy needs to change, or you need a better image. So with this, like these things together, being able to treat the presentation journey holistically, it turns out that for a lot of teams that do presentations a lot, that's a huge time saver.
And you have these learnings and you can summarize why you're different now, but getting started in the first place in creating a company and a product that already has similar solutions on the market, how did you go about differentiating from the beginning? Convincing users to switch if they were already on, Google Slides or PowerPoint. And maybe you didn't have to convince existing users of these other products, but I assume that's where most of your users came from. They used something else, and they wanted that holistic or just better experience. But they say you have to be 10 times better at a minimum than an existing solution for users to switch. How did you think about that in the early days?
Yeah, so that was actually something we tackled, or we faced already with Wunderlist, where all the bigger suites, they also added a to-do list, and we were just one product, right? So, and the tools within a suite have this magical thing where they're all considered or perceived to be for free because you're just paying for the suite. So they're really cheap then. So we faced the same issue with pitch, especially in the beginning, where it wasn't so full featured. And the thing that really hooked a lot of people in the beginning was that we kept on producing templates. Right, so there are templates for all the other tools as well. You can search, you can Google for PowerPoint templates and you will have thousands of results. None of them look good. So they're not a good starting point if you want to end up with a great design. Unless you have a designer behind you wanting to fix everything, which most people don't. So we really doubled down from the beginning of having really nicely designed templates. And unlike the templates that existed before, which were a collection of layouts, basically, we thought of a concept we call story templates, which is we try to tell a story within the template that helps you actually fill it out. So it's it's different what you want to say and how you want to sequence things. Build tension and release tension in your narrative is different depending on what you want to do. A seed deck is very different from a Series B pitch deck. Trying to sell a house is very different from trying to sell a car. So we have all kinds of different templates, and our template gallery has been growing ever since, and we keep making new templates. But nowadays we have also attracted a lot of teams with their own great designers and they create templates and then give them back to the community. So you can just go on pitch.com/templates and browse based on use case. And yeah, so that was really that's kind of an entry point for people to get started. We want to remove this friction where you're looking at a blank slide and you don't really know what the hell to do.
There was such a big growth lever for Notion when they added templates. Ben Lang, one of the early community guys, was one who made that he used that system in gaining users where they don't have to start with that blank page. If you're trying to do anything in Notion, when you can start from a place that's already giving you that framework, which is exactly what you did, yeah, that's going to drive users in and actually have them engage when they first see a product. So that was very smart by you.
Yeah, I think it's pretty natural to be afraid of starting from scratch. Doing anything to kind of get something. I know, like writers, they often just write a shitty first sentence, just to be done. Or painters, they just put a coat of paint, a background color. They will paint all over it, but the canvas is not blank anymore. So anything you can do to just get started, then the second step will be a lot easier.
Yes, 100%. Starting from that, eliminating that point of friction. You unfortunately had to announce layoffs of 2/3 of your staff, your entire team. How do you inspire the team to maintain a full speed ahead type of approach when the majority of the team disappears overnight?
Yeah, that's tough. So we had to face the music, basically, that we had spent a few years after we raised our Series B trying to generate growth and kind of grow really quickly, and we just couldn't find that right traction. You can blame COVID or the market conditions, something, but in the end, it wasn't a right fit for the kind of product that we were building, for the team that we had, and for the market that we were trying to build in. So that was a tough realization to make, because that kind of hits you as like walking into a wall a little bit. So there was definitely an emotional time before that all happened, when we were preparing or thinking about it, negotiating with investors who were kind enough to agree with us to not just shut down the company, but instead give us a new chance of taking the product that we had built and kind of reboot it in a much leaner way, which, in hindsight, you could say we should have stayed like that, stayed small the whole time. But we really wanted to build something much, much bigger, much broader. And it was a lot of the focus during that time was on generating growth. You're always building for an imaginary set of future users which you haven't met yet, sometimes at the detriment of your existing users, because you're always chasing that hockey stick curve. So in many ways, being able to do this reboot is a relief for all of us, for the founders and for the people who are still there, because we're now focusing on building a fundamental business. We're focusing on becoming profitable. We're right now really focusing on our existing users. Of course, we want more users in the future, and they're coming every day, but really not chasing this imaginary unicorn feature that's going to change everything, but really focusing on the fundamentals, and talking to our users a lot, listening to them. And I think that has been inspiring for the team, both to have more certainty about the present and maybe also the future. We were also in a situation where, because we had tried to scale our team, to scale our growth, we had ended up being very fat in terms of processes. Everyone who worked at Pitch was amazing, not trying to imply anything else, but when you're 120 people, or we were 180 at the peak, you need a lot of process in order to try to function. And we did layoffs in 2021, where we cut 25% of the staff. And after that, we ended up being a much smaller company, but we were still kind of playing a big company. We weren't able to grow out of that mindset that we were in. So when the idea about this reboot came now, it was really important for me and for the founding team and the leadership team to do it differently. And I'll be very honest with our team about that as well, that we are not going to have the same resources. Money is not free anymore. We're going to have to be even better at saying no to things, and some of it will hurt, but it will also be an environment where we cut away a lot of that red tape that existed in a big company, a lot of the bureaucracy and things that take away from that maker time that is what I think most people who join a startup want to have. So the new pitch is mostly flat, not a bunch of managers, not a bunch of career development frameworks or performance reviews. We're just building. We cut all the meetings. We just meet once a week for a town hall to show some demos and talk about how are we tracking against profitability. We try to be very transparent about that, and it's very simple to talk about the progress right now, because we're looking at how much money are we making compared to what we're spending. And the process of doing that was actually asking every person that we wanted to stay, that we thought had the right mindset and the right experience and the right expertise on certain areas. We asked them explicitly if they wanted to stay. And there were a few that actually decided against that, who got the same severance packages that the people who were laid off. So we ended up with a slightly smaller team than what we expected, but a really motivated team that is now engaged and passionate for this new journey that we're on, that is already very different.
That's an impossible thing to have to go through, but it seems like your mindset on it is great. So you were at 180 at peak. How many employees are you at today?
36.
Wow, that's a massive difference. Yeah, you're a startup again.
Yeah, we're a startup again, and we have a few Slack channels. So we're not quite at where we started, where we all sat in one room and everyone could yell, over the room to someone else. So we're fully remote with a small office in Berlin it's more like a shared workspace. But things are a lot simpler. Of course, letting go, saying goodbye to so many awesome teammates, it kind of opens a wound. But we've been trying to help them also to find their somewhere new, because they're all really amazing people. So I think this experience, we've had two similar experiences now, and this one is much better than the other time. So I'm very hopeful and confident that we can take this new chance and really build a solid business that can last a long time. Because we're not trying to take the whole cake. We will be, it will be sufficient for us to have a slice of it. So you can also let go of some of these maybe harmful mindsets, like being overly paranoid about who's eating your lunch, because there's enough food for everyone now, right? So it's less stressful and super fun. And I became CEO in this process as well, after having had that role as in an interim fashion for a while, and it's so far amazing because I'm not managing a giant company. I have a small team that are really self-going, so I can also spend my days like really digging into the product. Today I spent almost an hour with an engineer debugging some crashes, just and spend as much time as I need talking directly to customers and hearing what they love and what they miss about pitch. So yeah, it's good all around. So I think it's all things considered, it couldn't have turned out better.
That's great. And you started talking about your vision and the company's vision as now to obviously be around for the long term. And when you think about successful companies over the long term, you need to create a moat that keeps some competitors out. Even if you're going to have that slice of the cake, you got to maintain that slice of the cake, right? So what is that moat for pitch? How are you going to keep your slice of cake?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I mentioned already before the thing with templates, and then that you can get analytics out of your decks, and those are not really enough. So I mean, what has happened in the past, let's say, year and a half with the AI revolution, which is still ongoing. That has also kind of changed our view, or my view, on what we're doing next. So we built a generator in the fall, over the course of 17 weeks, which we released in November, which lets you generate a presentation from scratch. And there are others that do this, better or worse. There's some like notable competitors, but all of them started with that. So they were just leveraging or building a thin layer on top of GPT in order to create a deck very quickly, with varying degrees of good results, I would say. But what they all have in common is that the users, when they've created this draft, they want to continue. They want to refine the deck. So we think we will work more on that part of being able to go from 0 to 60% really quickly, and then let you, the human, take care of the 60 to 90%. And then we will cover the last 90, the 90 to 100% as well, to refine it and give you that space in the middle to be really creative without having to deal with the plumbing of everything. So those things combined, having the whole presentation life cycle, making it really easy to create an output that is not just beautiful, but that is of a quality that the people that you send it to, they will recognize that this is exceptional compared to the average that they usually get. I think that is something that will be very hard to copy, because it's not just about which JavaScript framework do you use or where do you deploy, but about taste, which, you know, it sounds maybe a little bit pompous, but I think we have it. We've proven it also since the Wunderlist days, of like really caring about the design, both in the visual glossy sense, but also in the usability sense, where it should be very easy to use a tool like this. Yeah, So what I really want to do is make it easier for people to create even more decks. So right now, all tools that create presentations are still stuck in stuck with a lot of manual work. So I want to create ways where you could connect a CRM directly to Pitch and just spit out the decks for the clients that you have, and then you review them and sign off on them, but you don't have to do the work. Or we have an API where you just send data and you get back decks, things like that. So we've been working mainly on our editor interface for the past few years, but I think more and more we feel like that is becoming more and more complete. So we can step away from that and just adding other ways to supercharge productivity for our users.
I was going to ask questions about AI and the future of Pitch. First, I want to say the editor is beautiful. It is a great product. I recently used it for a side project of mine, and super intuitive, super easy to use. So yeah, I agree. I think you guys are there on the editor side of things. You covered why AI is going to be impactful, and you started talking about what the future of Pitch looks like as well. Maybe you can talk a little bit further about, why what the future of Pitch looks like, and maybe about presentation software more generally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think every year there's been someone whispering in our ear, isn't it time to pivot away from presentations? They're dying. But more and more presentations are being created all the time. The entire universe is expanding. So I don't think that presentations as a medium will die anytime soon. But there are boring, static presentations, and there are more interactive, engaging experiences. And in the future, we will lean even more into that. In the past year, we've done that with building out an animation suite, so you can just have one-click animations. So you don't have to do the manual work. We do it for you, and it looks great. But we think that there's more to do there. So I mentioned before that a lot of our users, they use decks in some way to win work or convince others. So sprinkling in some kind of interactivity there to really get a signal back into this analytics, presentation analytics that we offer, can be really useful for our users to understand if their decks, if the message of the deck is landing, or call to action buttons, or an email form, or things like that. Yeah, I mean, decks, I think, as a format, compared to, for instance, a website, they will be around for a very long time. I mean, websites are growing, but there's something to this structured, mostly linear, sometimes non-linear narrative that lets you tell a story in bite-sized chunks. A little bit similar to how, TV shows are divided up into acts. Like, you want to control the flow. You want to control how you build up tension and then release it. And I think that is really hard to do with most other mediums. Video, obviously, can do that really well, but it's really expensive to create. So for Pitch, we thought about that with the video, and we decided to build something that's a little bit in between. So with Pitch, you can just record yourself, your face in a little bubble, so you can narrate your presentation, and others can watch it at their pace. Just having like the director speaking of the behind the scenes footage.
Sounds good. No, that's awesome. I agree with you. It's a format that isn't going away. It's such a great way to explain things, to win business, to convince someone. Yeah, it's not something that's going away. And if that's your theory, then your core business should grow if you have a beautiful product that's differentiated from the people on the market, including cool animations and additional features that make that core deck and just enhance it in general. So no, that's really exciting. And yeah, my closing question is the one, it's the same one I ask all guests. Tell me either your favorite quote or your most polarizing belief or both.
Oh, okay. So my favorite quote, I'm gonna be real cheesy startup guy and say there's a quote, I guess it's Johnny Ive quoting Steve Jobs
Okay.
about focus is not saying no to things that you don't want to do. It is saying no to the things you really want to do uh, to be able to do something else that you want to do more. I carry this with me all the time. And actually, there's this another quote from Steve Jobs. I promise, I'm not a Steve Jobs nerd. He was a flawed person, but amazing. But he said something about, you should be able to look yourself in the mirror in the morning uh, and be happy. And if you have many days or several days in a row where you're not, waking up full of joy about what you're doing, you're not passionate, then you need to switch up your life. You need to do something different. So I think that's a really important thing, those two things together, like being able to say no to things that you are passionate about, but also making sure that you're following your passion all the time and not getting stuck in things. I think it's maybe pretty clear from what I've said about processes and things like that here that I am a very gut feeling driven person. At Pitch, I surround myself with people that are different, so we're not all like that. But that is something that a lot of us have in common there as well. That you should be able to feel the software that you're building. And I once explained it to a fellow founder from another company as in, these savant musicians that kind of see notes, or savant mathematicians. They have colors for all the numbers somehow, and I feel like there's something similar there, where you can just you build something, and it's not abstract ones and zeros, but it's a material that you're working, and that's craftsmanship, right? It's something different than factory work. So I think that's not so polarizing. Probably half the people in the audience will agree with me. The other half thinks I'm an idiot. That's fine.
Steve Jobs is definitely very quotable, and you creating a product with beautiful design, I think Steve would be proud. And 50-50 is pretty good. That's polarizing. That's good enough. Yeah. So there you go. Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to chat today. Really enjoyed it. Best of luck to you in Pitch. I know it's a great product, so I know you got a bright future. Yeah, hope you have a great rest of the day.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was great meeting you, Ben.
Thank you. Have a good one.